All right, I'm going to give the patriarchy hack right off the bat in this episode. So, the system wants us as women to constantly seek gratitude from others. It wants us to constantly do things for others so that they say, "Oh, I appreciate this so much. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, you're such a lifesaver." La 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 la. It wants us to do all of these things with the expectation of gratitude because it wants us to stay in a perpetual state of infantilization. In other words, it wants us to be good little girls. When we boil it down to what gratitude is at its core, it's a form of validation. Oh, please, ma'am, appreciate me for what I've done. Oh, please, sir, tell me thank you so I can feel good about what I did for you. And at best, doing things with the expectation of gratitude keeps us running in a hamster wheel, hoping we'll eventually get appreciated and recognized and praised, and banking on this false sense of reciprocity that, oh, I'm going to be so appreciated, and then they'll return the favor. So it just keeps us running in a hamster wheel, waiting for a reward that never materializes. So that's at best. Not to be confused with at worst. Okay, at worst, doing things with the expectation of gratitude keeps you in a state of perpetual infantilization and portrays you as a good little girl. And it stands in the way of you getting the respect that you deserve. So think about this while DJ cues up the theme song. You are not unappreciated. You're just brainwashed. All right, DJ, hit it.
Oh, they're hopeless. A disgrace to the forces of evil.
So this patriarchy hack is gonna help you get off of that hamster wheel that's just constantly keeping you running, waiting for a reward that never materializes. Whether it's this false sense of reciprocity that you have, where you think that people are going to reciprocate what you did for them, or this false sense that you're going to be appreciated, and with that validation, you're going to be a better person, you're going to be validated for who you are, whatever it is, after listening to this episode, you're going to get off of that hamster wheel. Because you're going to understand when the revolution comes, you'll understand that actually now is the revolution. You're going to understand in this episode that keeping us in this hamster wheel is exactly where the system wants us to be. Okay? Because then we're at the mercy of other people. We're seeking external validation. We're constantly performing emotional labor. We're doing all these amazing things for other people. And we're like indentured servants. Okay? We are the indentured servants of the patriarchy. Not to be confused with the unpaid interns of the patriarchy who are the incels who help promote my work. Don't get them confused. Also, I thought of this law back in 2024. So it's been over 2 years since I've wanted to do this law. And it's just been on my list of laws/hacks that I've wanted to turn into an episode. So I'm really excited to finally be doing this. Oh, and another announcement is that signed paperbacks and hardcovers of my book are back in stock, especially the hardcover. I know a lot of you have been asking because that's been out of stock for a few months. So everything is back in stock. The link is in the show notes. Get them while you can because I feel like it's going to go back out of stock soon. Now, if you've been listening to this show long enough, or if you've read my book, you know that I talk about superstitious thinking, which is one of the main ways that the patriarchy brainwashes us and keeps us perpetuating the system on autopilot through our internalized patriarchy. And one of the biggest forms of superstitious thinking is thinking that if I just act fairly, then I'll be treated fairly. And I honestly cannot think of a more stupid, dumb way of getting women to play fair in an unfair world. I can't think of it. I can't think of it. Is there a referee keeping score of how fair you are? No. Because if there is, they're laughing at you. They threw out the score.
Did I stutter?
And they threw out the score a long time ago, so you're screwed. So this superstition that if I'm fair, if I act fairly, then I'll be treated fairly, it puts you in a false sense of reciprocity with the world. Because you think that your fairness is going to be reciprocated. Because if you give something out in the world, you're going to get it back. You can even think of it as a form of karma or what goes around comes around, that sort of thinking, which I also do not agree with. If karma was real, most men would literally be locked up in a maximum security prison. Okay, so let's get this superstitious thinking out of our head. And like I've said before, we always have to be super wary of anything that's based on reciprocity, because reciprocity is just an expectation that you've placed on another person, most likely in your head. Okay, it's not a legally binding contract. It is not even a responsibility. It's not an obligation. It's just an expectation. And an expectation oftentimes is a form of projection, and expectations are a guaranteed form of disappointment because you've put power into something that you can no longer control, which is other people's behavior. See how stupid that is? And that's how you keep running in the hamster wheel. So there are a couple of things that we need to learn and unlearn. So we're going to do the learning first. This reminds me in high school. When I was in grade 10, I had this math teacher who every time she would hand us back our tests, she would say, okay, the A's first. Read all the names, hand back the tests of the people who got A's. And then when they were done, she'd say, okay, the A's are finished. Neeki. And then hand back everybody else's test. So I don't know. This just reminded me of that. Anyway, the learning first, the A's first. You need to learn, you need to understand that gratitude is a glorified form of praise. It's a way to keep us begging for praise like good little girls. And not only that, gratitude is also a form of validation, projection, and it's also a burden. Okay, so let's talk about each of these individually. Starting with validation. When you're doing something with the expectation that someone's going to be really appreciative, or they're going to recognize you or give you some kind of public recognition or something like that, anything that you do with the expectation of gratitude is you doing it for validation. Because appreciation, just like reciprocity, is not an obligation, it's not a responsibility. Even if you're banking on a social or cultural norm or custom, you think, oh, in my culture, we do this when somebody does that. Whatever it is, you are literally banking on an expectation. Aside from the laws of physics, everything is made up. So there's no true enforcement of an expectation, especially when it comes to something as fleeting and as fickle as appreciation from another person. So gratitude is a form of validation, and it's a glorified form of praise, like I said. Now, it's also a form of projection because we're projecting how we think the other person ought to feel. Oh, if I went out of my way to give this person a ride, if I went out of my way to work overtime to finish up this report, then fill in the blanks with whatever you would do if you were in the shoes of the person who received that favor or that effort from you. So expecting gratitude is a way that we project how we think the other person ought to act if we were in their shoes. Okay. And like I said before, I can't put myself in someone's dad sneakers or someone's Crocs. I wear my cunty stilettos. I'm wearing my cute girly shoes. I can't put myself in your dad sneakers, ma'am. Like I don't want to imagine what it's like to be in your shoes. So projection clouds our understanding of reality so much, so deeply, that for a lot of people, it makes us blind and oblivious, completely oblivious to what's actually happening right in front of our eyes, because it feeds on something extremely powerful, which is our self-absorption. Ought is what blinds us to what actually is. Okay, so get this projection of, oh, they ought to do this. They ought to appreciate me. They ought to act like this. Get that projection out of your head. Or at least try, because it's pretty hard. All right, that knocks off two things on the list. That gratitude is a form of validation and a form of projection, which leaves the third thing on our list, which is that gratitude can actually be a burden. And we've all experienced this. Like, think of a time someone got you a really expensive birthday gift and you're like, crap, now I have to get them an equally as expensive gift when their birthday comes. So we've all experienced gratitude as a burden, but we might not have been consciously aware of it. So at least this gives some words and consciousness to something you may have been experiencing unconsciously for many years. Because gratitude can be a form of indebtedness. And you know how Charlie XCX on her Brat album, she has a song called Sympathy is a Knife? When I was writing this episode, I couldn't help thinking of my own version of that, which is gratitude is a gun. Okay? Gratitude can literally be like putting a gun to someone's head and trying to obligate them, trying to pressure them into doing something for you, into reciprocating whatever it is that you did for them. You're literally holding a gun to their head until their debt to you is repaid. Or the other way around. Someone's holding a gun to your head with that super expensive birthday gift or that big favor they did to you or something that they covered for you at work. And that's like a just something being held over you, waiting for you to repay that debt. All right? It's literally like Davy Jones sentencing you to 99 years of servitude aboard the Flying Dutchman.
Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
Maybe you've realized this, but that indebtedness, that burden, also evokes a lot of guilt. And guilt is such a nasty emotion to have because think about it. If someone went out of their way to do something for you and help you out, maybe you didn't ask for them to do that, but them having done that favor for you now makes you feel bad. And perhaps you know that you can't afford to get them an expensive gift like they got you. Perhaps you know that you're not really willing to cover for them at work the way they did for you. Whatever the reason might be that you might not be able to reciprocate, you're probably going to feel some guilt. And here's another layer on top of this, okay? There's a lot in terms of gratitude as a burden because it's a gun. It's a loaded gun. The other thing is that gratitude is something that people are so quick to get rid of. Oh my God. Like, just think about how a boomer might work up the ranks and ascend the corporate ladder over the course of their 40-year career, finally get to the top, and then suddenly they just completely forget how to convert a Word doc to a PDF. I feel like that's the perfect analogy because as time goes on or people move on with their lives and move on with whatever task it was that you helped them with, they're most likely going to remove you from the equation. They're going to replace you. They're going to remove you from the formula and replace you with themselves. As time goes on, or as people try to fill in the gaps or change a narrative to align with an agenda they have, maybe because they don't want to be indebted to you and they want to remove that from their memory altogether. Whatever it is, as time goes on, people will be very quick to remove you from the equation if it suits them. Even though you might have gone out of your way and busted your titties to help them out with whatever task, they might just take all the credit for themselves. As time goes on, also notice how a lot of people who ascend the ranks at work suddenly forget the struggle of what it was like to be a more junior person. People throw things away in hindsight. So do not bank on the fact that somebody has to go look in the past to give you praise or credit for something in the present or in the future. Does that make sense, class? Do we all understand? And most people, they don't want to live in the past, okay? You know when someone's like, oh, do you remember when? No, shut up. Shut up. So that was a lot to digest. That was a lot of things that we needed to learn, but the A's first, okay? Now, the A's are finished. Let's talk about what we need to unlearn. What you need to unlearn is that gratitude, receiving gratitude for something that you did, means that what you did mattered. Again, because it's a form of validation. But what you need to understand is that the outcome is not always proportionate to the input. Sometimes you can work really, really hard, go out of your way, perform a bunch of emotional labor, do all sorts of things, jump through all sorts of hoops, contort yourself, bring your legs up in a pretzel formation. You can do all these things. And the outcome can be a complete and utter flop. So the input is not always proportionate to the outcome, and vice versa. Sometimes it really isn't about working harder. It's about giving the impression that you worked really hard. I saw a reel, applies more to guys. So for the two people, men listening to this, I saw this reel that said, working hard or hardly working? I'm hard at work. You really need to decouple the outcome from the input. Okay, this doesn't mean that you gotta now go out and put no effort in and don't work hard and just be some lazy bum. That's not what I'm saying. But a lot of the time, especially when the outcome of something is not fully dependent on you, like you need to give it to a manager to review, or you're leaving it up to somebody to give feedback. That's out of your hands now. You can do everything that's in your control, frame things in the way that will resonate with the person who's reading it, or present things in a way that's going to be appealing to that person. Whatever it is that you need to do within your control, you'll do that. But that still doesn't change the fact that when you put something on someone's desk, when you hand something over to somebody else, you've now relinquished control, at least in part, over the outcome. It really helps to be detached from the outcome as much as you can. It's the same thing with me. I can spend so much time working on an episode and I can think it's really, really good. And then I'll post it and maybe the algorithm just doesn't work with me and it flops. Okay. So we have to detach from the outcome, especially when we don't have full control over it. Don't forget, patriarchy hack number 6. To succeed at anything, you must be emotionally detached. So that was all the things that we needed to learn and unlearn. And like I said, I want to reiterate, keeping us in this constant state of seeking gratitude or doing things with the expectation of gratitude keeps us as women in a perpetual state of infantilization. It makes us navigate the adult world like little girls, nice little girls who are seeking praise and a pat on the head. And that's not going to get you respected at work, in dating, in life. It is not going to help you. It is just going to bleed you dry. And sure, as kids, that the line of thinking that if I'm fair, I'll be treated fairly, that mindset and that sense of reciprocity most likely worked and helped us navigate the social world, because most kids would follow the rules. There were people who were enforcing the rules, like parents and teachers. And even though there were a few bad apples here and there, it mostly worked out, right? There was social cohesion. But you're not 5 years old anymore, okay? And in the adult world, it's no longer bad apples here and there. It's the fact that the tree is rotting from the root, because the tree has a fungal disease called patriarchy. It's really bad. It's really fungal. I want to share a really interesting and somewhat different example to illustrate this law. And this is completely different from anything I've ever done on this show. You're going to listen to this and you're going to think I made it up. Hey baddies, quick intermission here. As you probably know, this show is entirely independently produced by me. I am the producer, the director, the writer, the researcher, the fact checker, the marketing executive, and the unpaid intern who gets everyone coffee. Not to be confused with the unpaid intern of the patriarchy. And this is independently produced because I am committed to giving you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And it's because of support from baddies like you who subscribe to my Patreon that I can continue delivering the truth and not censoring myself and tiptoeing around topics that are way too important to ignore, but are kind of scary if you are signed to a label or a production company. And of course, I make it worth your while. I'm not just saying, please go subscribe to my Patreon, ma'am, please. You'll get tons of perks. I have a private phone line that you'll get the number to, and you can call me pretty much anytime. I'll answer if I'm free. And you also get other perks like early and ad-free releases of my episodes, bonus episodes, voting power on my girly laws, handwritten letters from me, and a bunch of other perks. Check it out for yourself. The link is in the show notes. And again, thank you all so much for your continued support. All right, back to the show. Given the nature of this example, because it's something that's personal, it's kind of difficult to go out and find a piece of history that illustrates this really well, or to look at pop culture because it's something that normally happens within someone's head and behind closed doors. I got a really good example of this. I reached out to one of my friends who recently had a major falling out with one of her friends who went full bridezilla shortly after that friend got married. If you watched my previous episode, I think it was the one directly preceding this, or maybe a couple preceding this, I talked about how so many friendship breakups seem to happen after weddings, especially for women who were in the bridal party. And this is a textbook example of that. Oh my God. So let's get into it. Let's call the bride Maleficent, because we need to stay with our theme of Disney villains. And we'll call my friend Aurora, because they're from the same movie. Now, Maleficent got engaged a couple of years ago and asked Aurora to be her bridesmaid. Now, from the get-go, Maleficent wanted to maximally inconvenience her guests, so she decided to have a destination bachelorette and a destination wedding. And in an attempt to make it even more inconvenient and expensive for everybody involved, she also decided that each of these events are going to be an entire week long.
Before the sun sets on her 16th birthday, she shall prick her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel and die.
Aurora loves to plan trips, so she offered to plan the entire bachelorette, all 7 days of it. So she's like, Maleficent, do you want me to plan this trip? Maleficent's like, yeah, great, go for it. I'd love that. And so Aurora plans everything to the letter, not just the hotel and the reservations and all of that, but coordinated outfits, activities, hour by hour itineraries. Everything, every detail you could possibly imagine. She also bought all the merch, the balloons and the tiaras and all the things that you normally use for a bachelorette and then throw in the garbage right after it's over. So she went all out and did everything to make sure that this trip was planned to the T and was enjoyable for Maleficent. The bachelorette cost $1,000. The wedding cost $2,000. And both of the trips combined cost each person about 10 days of paid time off that they had to take from work. And depending on where you work, that is all the time off you get for an entire year. Now, what did Aurora get as appreciation for all her efforts? She got one verbal thank you from Maleficent, and as a wedding favor for her bridesmaids, Maleficent got everybody these beautiful necklaces that were purchased from Temu.
And to show I bear no ill will, I too shall bestow a gift on the child.
So if Aurora was banking on the fact that she was going to get a big fat hug or a huge appreciation or maybe something reciprocated when her time comes, she was sorely mistaken. Now, fast forward to a couple of years after the wedding, Aurora is turning 30 and she lives in the United States, whereas Maleficent lives in Canada, in Toronto, where I live. So Aurora comes to Toronto for her birthday, and it's a big milestone for her. She's super excited. She celebrates her 30th with friends, And she asks Maleficent if she's okay with her extending her trip by a few days so that she can spend more time with her friends. The other girls in the group, they were like, I'd love to, but we can't take any more time off of work. We can do things in the evening and still have fun. Let us know. Maleficent, on the other hand, says that, no, I can't accommodate you staying any longer because I'm going to be overstimulated. Those were her exact words. I am going to be overstimulated. So Aurora messages Maleficent privately and she says, hey, this was super hurtful. I flew all the way here to spend time with my friends. And listen, if it's about money, don't worry about it. I can cover things. I mean, as the birthday girl, I don't know why you're covering it, but sure. Maleficent says, nope, it's not about the money. I'm just going to be overstimulated. I can't make it. Deal with it. And Aurora, who's shocked, rightfully so, points out that there's a big disparity in the effort that she's put in for a lot of the things that Maleficent required of her friends and the effort that Maleficent is now putting into Aurora and their friendship. And Maleficent says, oh, I didn't realize we're keeping score.
Oh, they're hopeless. A disgrace to the forces of evil.
Now, this is such a textbook example because it's a chance for someone who had some huge favors done for her to now reciprocate that same effort, love, and money when the time came. And it completely fell flat. Obviously, nothing was reciprocated, and the entitlement that Maleficent felt was very evident. And reading in between the lines, we can see that Maleficent never intended to reciprocate that effort in the first place. Probably what happened was that all these things, the destination bachelorette, the destination wedding, all the activities that happened where she was the center of attention, all these things probably stroked her sense of grandiosity. And she does not want to go back to being just a regular schmegler girl. She wants to be the bride. She wants to be the center of attention. So she can't really handle somebody else being the center of attention, even if it's for a birthday. And it's very clear that Maleficent is not going to reciprocate any of that effort simply because she doesn't want to. So she's not somebody who necessarily treated gratitude like a burden or a debt. She just completely waved aside that expectation altogether and said no. And as you can imagine, my friend ended her friendship with Maleficent, and we're all now living happily ever after. Now, what does this all mean for you? Maybe you have a Maleficent in your life, or maybe you haven't encountered a Maleficent yet, but eventually you probably will, whether that's a manager at work, a friend, or somebody else in whatever other capacity. There's going to be a Maleficent in your life. What I'm going to tell you when the revolution comes is what I have said many a time on this show. Okay? If you don't know by now, if you don't know this, I'm going to tell you. Fool me once, shame on you. You fooled me, can't get fooled again. That's not actually what I was going to say. But listen, be an anus and shift the onus. With so many ways that we are socialized, the onus is on us to prove ourselves, to show we're worthy, to beg for crumbs. Please, ma'am, I have this gratitude. With so many things, the onus is on us. And not rightfully so either. The onus is on us to keep us running in the hamster wheel and have us beg for crumbs, because that's what people pleasers do. They beg for crumbs. Now, once we shift the onus and now place it on the other person, and we say, okay, well, you prove to me why you deserve for me to do this for you. You prove to me why you deserve to be in my life. You prove to me that you bring something to the table. Because if I'm coming to the table, that's what I've brought to the table. I brought myself, babes. When you shift the onus, you're going to get backlash. People are going to think you're a bitch or you're bossy or you're mean. So you're going to look like an anus, but that's okay. Because what happens when we shift the onus is that we end up getting much more respect than we were to receive otherwise. So trust me, you got to go down the onus to anus pipeline. And something really important that you're triggering, because remember, you want to trigger people's need to prove themselves to you. Patriarchy hack number 33. Patriarchy hack number 33. Now, a concept I introduced a few weeks prior in one of my more recent episodes is the effort gap, which is the gap between how you're currently being treated and how you want to be treated. And oftentimes what's preventing that effort gap from closing is effort, obviously, but not from the other person. It's effort from you, because you're out here doing way too much. And when you do too much, like my friend Aurora did with Maleficent's wedding, when you do way too much, you're going to trigger people's grandiosity, and you're going to make them think that now they're entitled to your effort. Just like how we're going through the onus to anus pipeline, a lot of these people, especially with this low-level sense of grandiosity or narcissism, are going through the effort to entitlement pipeline. So they're going to end up thinking they're entitled to the effort that you put for them, especially because you set the precedent. Oh, well, she went out of her way to plan my batch, so for my birthday, I'm going to expect the same amount of effort. And you set the bar really high right off the bat. You set the bar too high, and now that's the level of effort that people are going to expect from you. And this is especially harmful at work when you're trying really, really hard to prove yourself initially and set a good impression, and you end up doing too much and you can't maintain it. So the effort gap won't close until you pull back your own effort. Because best case scenario, you're just going to keep running in the hamster wheel and performing emotional labor and excessively giving too much time, energy, and money. And worst case scenario is the more manipulative and abusive people are going to pick up on the fact that you're driven by gratitude, and they'll withhold gratitude as a way of making you doubt yourself. And they're going to try to trigger you and make you question your worth. So hop into the onus to anus pipeline and start catching yourself when you're doing things, even if it's a small favor that you're doing for your friend and you, in your gut, you're like, oh, I really don't want to do this. Why am I doing this? Start consciously asking yourself, why am I doing this? Am I doing this out of niceness or out of kindness? This is a distinction I introduced in Patriarchy Hack number 27, Start Being Mean, because niceness is performative. It's something that we do to maintain social harmony, and it's something that we do because we're expected to. Whereas kindness is something we do out of empathy. And it's when we're actually using our free will to do something. Doing things with the expectation of gratitude is a form of performance. So it's a form of niceness. And remember, niceness is not genuine. And when you're not acting genuinely and you're not being authentic to who you are and what you truly want to do, you're going to end up being resentful. And when you give too much, whether it's in a relationship or at work, anyone who gives everything to you will expect everything from you. And it's the same thing with you. So if you're out here doing way too much, you're going to expect that same level of effort in return. And that's just not feasible because you're bending yourself and breaking your back doing these things. No one else wants to break their back. And you shouldn't have been doing that in the first place. And unfortunately, gratitude is something that so many women chase, especially women who are people pleasers, because that's kind of all you can chase. You're just going after crumbs because that's all you're going to get as a people pleaser. You're only going to get crumbs. If you want the whole loaf, you got to be a bitch. You got to stand on business. You might have to stand on a few necks, and you need to stop performing things because people can sense when you're not being authentic. People can sense when you're hesitant to do something. You're half in, half out. They can sense that. And the more you go out of your way to do things that you don't want to do simply because you want to keep the peace, or you want someone to say, oh my God, thank you, or you want to get recognition or whatever it is, the more you do that, the less people are going to respect you. So let's get in the habit of being an anus, shifting the onus, and being goal-oriented. All right, we need to replace our expectations with concrete goals. Oh, if I work really hard and I work overtime enough, they'll eventually promote me. No, they won't. If you go to your manager and speak about a concrete 6-month or 12-month plan to promote you with goals that you know you can achieve and measurable outcomes, then yes, if you work enough, then they will probably promote you, and you got to still advocate for yourself. But if you're banking on an expectation, which is, again, just something that is in your head, you're not going to get diddly. You're not going to get diddly squat. So remember how the input and the outcome are not necessarily always proportionate. And also remember that there are a lot of forces that outweigh gratitude, like greed and ambition and self-interest. These are things that outweigh gratitude by so many points that if you're banking on gratitude when the other person is driven by greed or self-interest, which most people are, you're literally guaranteeing that you're going to be disappointed. Read Patriarchy Hack number 5 in my book, Appeal to People's Self-Interest When Asking for Anything. This is a hack that underwent a lot of construction when I was writing it for my book. And I actually created a formula to ask for things while appealing to people's self-interest. You never want to appeal to people's generosity or to their sense of gratitude, because again, you're going back into the past and saying, oh, remember when you did this? No, shut up. I don't want to remember. I only remember things that serve me, and I don't remember that. Sorry, selective amnesia. Now let's talk about exceptions. There are no exceptions. The A's first. No, I'm kidding. There really are no exceptions to this law. This is a hack to get you to stop doing things for validation and stop putting power into external things. Okay, you're taking power away from yourself and you're putting it into something fickle, like someone's mood or someone's willingness to reciprocate or appreciate. Fickle as fuck. That's a silly sentence. And it bears mentioning, I mean, obviously, if you got this far into the episode, you know the type of gratitude I'm talking about. I'm talking about appreciation and thanks and recognition from other people. I'm not talking about gratitude in the sense of you being grateful for the things that you have in your life and having an abundance mindset, you know, sitting down and writing in your journal the things you're grateful for that week. That's not what I'm talking about, okay? That's not what I'm talking about at all. So don't get these two types of gratitude confused. The good gratitude is the internal gratitude, right? How you're looking at the world and you're always finding things to be grateful for and having positive energy. That's from the abundance mindset. The external gratitude, where you're seeking validation from people, that comes from a lack mindset. So again, there's really no exceptions to this rule. And also, if you're doing things for your friends, for people close to you, for your loved ones, obviously you want to do them out of empathy. Sometimes we just do things because it's nice. We want to put a smile on someone's face. So this doesn't really apply to that. This is more so for professional things like at work, because you want to be goal oriented. You don't want to be putting in effort williard-nilliard and expecting recognition, or for friendships where you might be going way out of your way to, you know, plan a whole bachelorette like Aurora did. So this is for situations where you could get burned and you could end up with an outcome that is not favorable to you in the long term. Okay, if you want to go do something nice for your mom, do it. Like, no one's stopping you, babes, okay? The other day I wanted to take my mom for a pedicure and I told her, let's go. I'm going to go get my nails done, my toes done. Let's go together, my treat. And as I'm telling her, she looks at me and interrupts me mid-sentence. And she's like, your hair looks really oily. Does anyone else's mom just interrupt them to like comment on how ugly their appearance is? Or is this just my mom? Anyway, that is the end of this episode. Thank you all so much for tuning in. The final quote I'm going to leave you with is this. And this is from the book, Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office by Lois Frankel. I love this quote. Miracle workers don't get recognized. They get canonized. And with that, thank you all so much for tuning in. I'll see you in the next episode. Don't forget to rate the podcast 5 stars, follow, subscribe, like, comment, engage with it in any way you so choose. And in the meantime, don't forget that you are the baddest bitch in any building that you step foot in. All right? Until next time, stay bad. Love you. Bye. Boom, boom, boom. This is an announcement for flight not boarding, canceled. Just kidding. I don't know why I did that. Anyway, if you're listening to this, you're probably one of the baddies who are supporting on Patreon. So shout out to you, Kate, Danny, Lindsay, Emberly, Brittany, Hannah, Nadine, Amanda, Kitty, Red, Adriana, Mina, Gemma, Katya, Naomi, Nilufar, Adelaide, Nadia, Melinda, Sophia M, Sophia K, Jada, Amara, and Kat. Thank you all so much for your support. Bing, boom, boom.
Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.